One of the enigmas that has accompanied all of humanity during the course of their existence is to be able to understand how suns, stars, planets, and galaxies arose. If we could have a precise explanation about it, this answer would be the response we have always been waiting for about what the true origin of the human being is here on Earth. First of all, we will start from a simple example that we all know, the principle of life that is inside a seed. By necessity, the seed requires to be put into fertile soil. There, encountering the nutrients of the sun and the earth, it will be able to go through its first transformation, which is to take out its two cotyledons and a hypocotyle, which will grow up towards the surface of the earth and become the birth of the plant. From then on, it will continue to grow until it becomes the corresponding tree, within the species that corresponds to it. And of course, it will give some flowers and give some fruits. Those fruits will again contain the seed, which will later give space to new generations of the tree or the species that corresponds to it. It is necessary to be able to specify that in this seed, when it was located there in the earth, it has inside it an atomic consciousness. That atomic consciousness determines what will grow from that seed. In being so, there is no confusion that someone who sows an orange seed will not end up getting a tree of apples. So, the atomic consciousness that is immersed within a seed gives the guidance, the precise information, so that it can fulfill its purpose of a new birth in the species that corresponds to it. The same is going to happen in the animal kingdom. The same is going to happen in the human kingdom. So if we took this simple example to what the cosmos is, then we would have a similar principle, which is the one that will sustain the cycle of creating suns, planets, stars, galaxies, stellar bodies, and others. So this principle is already immersed in what they call nature dimensions, or the dimensions of nature. Because one thing is the process that we explained of the seed, which finally becomes a tree. But in this case, when we talk about the creation of a planet, or a celestial body, the planet also starts from a point, which is a conscientious atom. There, in this atom, there are the laws that direct what it's going to become. In this case, we use the term seed because it is a very understandable word, given that we know that it has to be sown in a place so that it can grow successfully. So, this atom, or this principle, with these conscious laws within it, in our case, we could call a seed. It is located within the sixth dimension. The sixth dimension is the causal world, or the world of cause. It is called this because it is the origin of the causes and effects that we see here on a three-dimensional level. As this principle is universal, from there, the laws are determined that are going to direct the germination or creative process for this atom. Or if we continue with our similarity to the example we have given at the beginning of a seed. So, from there it will begin that atomic principle with that innate wisdom. It must descend through the different dimensions. Each of them is going to give what corresponds to each one, so that when it appears in the three-dimensional part, then it has the constitution that is required or for which it has descended from the different dimensions. When this principle arrives in the world of the causes, the world of the sixth laws, or the sixth dimension, it is there that it has the authorization to create, so to speak. Then that atom or seed begins to descend, to integrate into the fifth dimension. From the sixth, it comes to the fifth. In the fifth dimension, it can receive or acquire the raw material to be able to subsequently achieve the mass or the body. In this case, we would be referring to a mental matter, or the world of the mind, where a body will be provided for when it is in the three-dimensional world. Then, that mass, or raw material, in 5 dimensions, will have its own characteristics of intelligence that the seed, or the primordial atom, has acquired in the 5th dimension, all the material that corresponds to it. Therefore, it will then descend to the 4th dimension, and in that place, the matter coming from the 5th dimension floods or covers that primordial seed or atom, preparing it to receive the proper vibrations that the 4th dimension provides, which are the vital characteristics of matter. In this case, the vibratory reproductive element within it, that which we could simplify by saying is the vital signs of that matter, will be acquired in the 4th dimension, in such a way that when it appears in the 3rd dimension, it already has taken a tour, so to speak, through the superior dimensions and has managed to conquer the material, the capacity and the necessary properties to be able to appear here in the 3-dimensional world with an appropriate shape according to the function that it will fulfill. It is necessary to understand that this atom, once it has completed the functions that it had to fulfill at the 3-dimensional level, it then returns and ascends through the dimensions from where it was once created or born. That is, once it has spent many decades or billions of years providing a service, such as a body or sphere in the middle of the universe, it must then withdraw. When it retires or returns, it will pass through the dimensions, leaving in each one that which it received or acquired in each particular dimension, and will return again to the state of a primordial atom or seed, to the 6th dimension. But at that moment, it already has the experience of having made a gigantic journey through the dimensions, and the experience of having provided a service as a celestial body in the 3-dimensional part. Subsequently, over time, that atom will descend again, but when it descends again for the 2nd or 3rd or 4th, or as many times as is necessary, then it will be able to acquire in the 3-dimensional world not only a more gigantic body, but a series of unique responsibilities in terms of maintaining the balance of the cosmos. Let's suppose that, for the Earth to be Earth as we know it, the globe in which we are living on, it was necessarily preceded by the functions of a moon. That is to say, the moon fulfilled particular functions and later granted the possibility of becoming Earth. We then would have to see that this moon also has an ancestor, which could be a wandering comet, an aerolite, or perhaps, in primary conditions, of a meteorite. Undoubtedly, it is necessary to pass through this school of growth so that at some point that atom or seed has the experiences in descending and ascending through the dimensions. There, it is acquiring an education or an experience to be able to finally become planet Earth. The planet Earth that we have and we find ourselves on today will too finish its cycle of operation or stellar activity, once the humanities that still need to pass through this planet have done so. But it slowly penetrates into the dimensions, that is, it goes from the third dimension to the fourth dimension, because this primordial atom or initial seed begins once again that huge journey back or of return to the place where it left off. So that's why we will see a series of transformations for our planet Earth. When it rises back into the sixth dimension, turned into an atom or seed, and then descends once again into the three-dimensional world, it will have for the possibility, because of the experience that it had as an Earth, of being, for example, a giant planet similar to the ones we see within our solar system, such as Saturn or Jupiter, which are gigantic, giving way to other forms of creation. But we must understand that this all takes place in a span of a supremely millennial time period. For this reason, the human being, with an average experience of 80 years of life, simply does not live long enough to verify it. So the explanations that we offer are possible because of the universal Gnostic wisdom of all times, the millennial Gnosticism, which has such content to be able to explain in a way that the human mind and intellect can understand how these types of creations can be, and explains them in such a way that is simple so that they can be understood without a problem. Subsequently, a planet, for example, like Jupiter, which is very evolved, has the possibility in the future of becoming a small sun. That sun, after a long time, will also have the possibility of becoming, let's say, a medium-sized sun. And as time continues to pass and pass, then this medium-sized sun would have the possibility of becoming a supergiant sun. In this case, the sun that illuminates the solar system has the characteristics that it has gone through or received in its evolutionary process, cognitive process, which consequently allows it to have these functions. So it fulfills those functions because it was once a planet. It complies these functions as a sun because it was once a moon. It fulfills those functions because it was once a comet. That is, it has passed through an entire school in the cosmos in such a way that it can occupy its current place. So let's imagine what kind of evolutionary cycles, for example, the star called the Sirian Sun had to go through, which is the one located in the center of the Milky Way galaxy. And around it, 100 billion suns rotate, and each one of them has had to fulfill a specific cycle in order to be the center, let's say, around which a series of planets revolve, and that life can be processed in the different kingdoms as we know it. So, it is necessary to keep in mind that this whole cyclical movement, which implies what the generation of one planet is and the death of it, and the birth of another, is done through the dimensions. It is something that we should not forget. The day that the sun, which illuminates our solar system, which we call the Sun of Urs, must retreat, is because it has already completed the cycle of being able to sustain the lives of all the planets that revolve around it. It will then immerse within the dimensions from which we have mentioned, and from which it has also come from. And in this process of immersing itself into the dimensions, from the third to the fourth dimension, it will inevitably drag with it all the other planets that are around it. The planets around it are identified by Gnostic cosmology as Mercury, Venus, Mars, Jupiter, Saturn, Uranus, and Pluto, but there are three more which are outside of what is known the periphery that Gnosticism calls Vulcan, Persephone, and Clarion. Then, all those planets as a whole will go behind the sun, leaving visible to those who can observe at the time an event they will see as what is called the black hole. The black hole, then, is the void left by a celestial body. whose size fulfilled a function, and its size was so large that when it retired, it leaves a void as a mark. But this doesn't mean that it's able to swallow an entire galaxy. But what it does mean is that it is able to absorb the bodies that depended on it for the process of sustaining life. So, that great mystery remains there because it is something transcendental, extraordinary that is well worthwhile keeping in mind for this program that we are observing today.